Welcome to 30 Tips in 30 Minutes Bar Exam Prep. This program is brought to you by the American Bar Association Law Student Division, Young Lawyers Division, Section of Litigation, and the Career Center. ABA membership is free for law students. The Law Student Division offers premium benefits, which includes access and savings for Quimmie.com, discounts on bar review programs, up to $50 off West academic casebooks, and a legal ethics bundle that includes a free model Rules of Professional Conduct ebook. Upgrade to premium for only $25. The Young Lawyers Division is the ABA's home for the new attorney, giving members tools to navigate the early years of a career, opportunities to network, and resources to grow skill sets. ABA lawyer members under the age of 36 or in practice 5 years or less, and law student members are automatically enrolled in the Young Lawyers Division for free. The Section of Litigation provides students opportunities to network with experienced litigators and resources like quick sound advice podcasts and telephone roundtable discussions, perfect for busy law students. Section membership is also free for law students. The ABA Career Center offers both career development resources and a job board for law students, lawyers, and other legal professionals across all disciplines and career stages. Okay, it's time to meet our faculty. Today we have Jarrad Wood joining us. He's a litigation associate with Larson O'Brien LLP in Los Angeles. And we also have Jessica Pieri, who works as a legal counsel for the House Republican Office of the Connecticut General Assembly. Thank you guys for joining us. Jarrad, can you please start us off with the first 12 tips?
Absolutely, thank you. So let's start with the first tip, which is creating a schedule. So creating a schedule is probably one of the most important parts of studying for the bar. And in terms of creating a schedule, you'll usually want to think in terms of both the long-term schedule, which will probably be created at least in part by a bar review program if you're taking that, which will set various milestones for your study. Then you'll also want to set your own daily and weekly schedule, which is how you will work your way through the bar study schedule. One of the most common daily schedules people use, and something that I used, is a method called the hire yourself method, which is where you basically treat bar study like a 40-hour-a-week job, and you plan on checking in at 9 and ending sometime around 5 or 6, and taking a lunch break in between. Okay, so moving to the next tip, study style. Tip number 2, study style. So for study style, as the tip notes, everyone has a different study style, and so you have to do what works for you. Personally, I learn by listening to things, and so when I was studying for the bar, I actually listened to a lot of the lessons on recorded podcasts, and I just go for walks outside and listen to the lectures, and then come home and do the practice test. And that's what worked for me. Other people work better by writing the subject matter down. Others, work by saying it out loud. There are any number of ways, but you should think about the ways that you've studied effectively for your tests, and other things in the past. Okay, going on to tip number 3, making time for you. So making time for yourself is very important, because as this notes, bad lifestyle changes will affect you really quickly. So you want to make sure that you're making time to eat healthy, drink lots of water, and I made time once or twice a day to work out. That way, I felt like I was staying healthy, and then also keeping the blood flowing and breaking up the study schedule. So moving on to tip number 4, coordinate bar review schedule. So this kind of touches back on the first tip, which is creating your own schedule. But it's important to incorporate the bar review schedule into your own personal schedule. And one way that I've seen it done, and the way that I did it, is by doing this hire yourself method, where you're really treating bar study like a full-time job. Not everyone has that luxury. Some people are studying while also working, and so you might have to do something a little different. But it's important to take into account your own personal schedule so that you can stay consistent and have a predictable bar schedule, and also make sure that you are spending enough time studying, because it will take a lot of time generally. Okay, moving on to the 5th tip, decompress. So, and this also relates to the 3rd tip of making time for yourself, but you want to make sure that you're making time to relax and decompress for in order to absorb the material, and also just to avoid burnout, because it's really easy when you're studying so intensely. Personally, I set aside an evening every week to just hang out with friends and not think about the bar. For others, it might be spending some time by yourself or with family or something else. But it's important to take some time outside of bar study and thinking about the bar to just relax and decompress. Okay, tip 6, study area. So you'll want to have a study area that allows you to be comfortable, and that can mean different things for different people. Personally, I like study areas that are almost completely quiet, like libraries. I know that others prefer to study where there are more people in, for example, a coffee shop, or in another area that has some more people and noise. Whatever that area is for you, you want to make sure that you can find it, and that it allows you to be comfortable while you're studying. Okay, moving on to the next section, committing to pass, and this is under the mindset and attitude section. And what I found when I was studying for the bar is that mindset and attitude are some of the most important parts of studying for the bar. Being able to have the right mindset is really key, studying and then also going into the bar. So number 7 is committing to pass, and from the very beginning, committing yourself to doing everything you can to pass the bar. And one thing that one tip that I heard and that I used is, from the beginning, I would try and visualize, mentally visualize, what it would be like to walk into the testing center, what it'd be like to take the test, and what it'd feel like to walk out of the test feeling confident. And it was helpful, because it really helped me keep that positive mindset. Moving on to tip 8, staying positive, likewise, I think it's easy to, um, uh, you know, to be pessimistic, when you're studying for the bar, or to be self-deprecating. But I think being able to stay positive and tell yourself, sometimes even out loud, that you're going to pass, is really helpful in kind of keeping up energy and persevering through study and then the test itself. Moving on to tip 9, be yourself. So similar to other tips, it's a really individualized process, studying for the bar, and so you'll want to focus on what are the things, what are your own strengths and what are your own weaknesses, and acknowledge that those are not necessarily going to be the same as others. And if you see others doing better in one area or another, don't worry about it, and definitely don't let it make you feel any less positive. So moving on to tip 10, face the task. So again, this is about the mental approach to the exam, and the fact that this is taking the bar is a real privilege. You've worked really hard to get to this point, and you're here because you've been successful. And so appreciating that fact, for what it is, that this is definitely not the SAT. Not everyone takes it. This is something that only a real elite group of people get to do. Moving on to step 11, keep practicing. So the bar, studying for the bar, in many ways is like studying, is like preparing for a competition in a sport, or something like that. When you're practicing, it's like you're just doing drills, or you're doing reps at the gym, or you're doing anything else that you do to prepare for a sports competition. If you do not as well as you expect on a practice exam, just like if you stumble and practice for a sport, it's not the end of the world. It's just a part of practicing, and the larger point is making sure that you get all the practice you need in before the event. So lastly, step 12, asking for help. Definitely don't be shy to ask for help from the bar review instructors. That's what they're there for, and also classmates. I have a good friend who I studied with for the bar, and it was incredibly helpful to have someone there to bounce questions off of, and to have some help while studying for the exam. So definitely ask for help as you need it. And those are the 12 tips. I'll pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Jarrad. So we're going to start on tip 13 now, which deals with practice tests. Tip 13 is take many tests. Take as many practice tests as possible and become proficient with both multiple choice and essay questions. I know for a lot of people it can be tempting to focus on multiple choice or essays, but you really need to make sure you practice both and you practice often. I know for me especially, it was key to do time testing. That way I could make sure I was getting all the questions answered and getting as much information as possible when doing essay questions in a timed setting. Tip number 14 is determine strengths and weaknesses. You need to use those practice tests to determine your strengths and your weaknesses, and you need to focus on both. I know for me, sometimes it was easier to focus on my weaknesses because I wanted to make them strengths, but you also have to make sure that you're maintaining your strengths as well, because that's where you're going to get those easy points during the exam. Tip number 15 is memorization. One key, especially with practicing, is making materials that you can use to really memorize, whether that be flashcards, acronyms, songs. It can really help you retain the information. I know for me, I did a lot of flashcards, and I would take those flashcards with me wherever I went. And if I was just sitting around, I would start flipping through them and using the time to keep challenging myself and making sure that I was getting the most that I could and memorizing the most. Tip number 16 is review everything. You want to review the correct answers, but you want to review the wrong answers, but you also want to review the correct answers. I know for me, it was a lot of, well, I want to save time. I have got a lot to do. There's a lot in my plan for the day. I'm just going to review the questions that I got wrong. But when you take the time to review the questions you got correct, sometimes you'll realize you got it correct, but you may have gotten it correct for the wrong reason. And so you definitely want to make sure you are also reviewing those correct answers to make sure you got them correct for the correct reason and you know the rule. That way you won't accidentally mess up that rule in the future. Tip number 17, research essay questions. You need to find out what bar examiners are looking for on the essay portions of the exam. I know a lot of the bar prep courses are very good at outlining exactly what you need to have in your essay questions. So really making sure you take the time to review what they're telling you when you're prepping will be really key to making sure you get all the points that you can on your essay questions. Tip number 18, prepare for everything. Don't think you can pass the exam by doing well on a certain number of subjects. You need to prepare for everything. I know in my bar prep course, there were some students that were trying to pinpoint what subjects would be tested and what subjects they could avoid. In all honesty, that's a bad thing to do, and I didn't do it because you never know who they may test on evidence every year, but this may be the year that they don't, and they test on some state-specific law that you may not have thought to cover because they may not have tested on it in 7 years. But you definitely want to cover everything and prepare for everything. That way you are ready for the day of the bar exam and you feel confident that you know everything that you can. Tip number 19, brush up. So these tips are all talking about exam week specific. So in the last week, you don't want to be cramming. You want to look over the subjects that you want to brush up on, whether it's taking a few last minute quick tests and seeing where you may still be struggling, where the areas you need to brush up on, and focusing on those, but not cramming. Tip number 20 is confirm logistics. You want to make sure in advance you finalize your day of exam logistics. Confirm parking, directions to the exam site, nearby restaurants. By prepping ahead, you can avoid any additional day of stress. And the day of is stressful enough. You don't need to be worrying about driving or parking. So definitely making sure you prepare ahead of time will really help alleviate any of that additional stress. Tip 21 is get plenty of rest. The bar is as much a test of endurance as it is a test of knowledge. Sleep is your friend. You need to make sure you get sleep. I know I built into my schedule sleep, especially that last week, because I knew I needed to get as much rest as I could. That way, I was performing at peak performance for the day of the bar exam. Tip 22, take more tests. Do more practice tests. If possible, take advantage of any mock bar exam sessions provided by your bar prep course. I found the mock bar exam extremely helpful, and it was great, especially with working out timing, because it's not a full timed exam, but it's a shortened timed exam. But it allowed me, especially with the essays, to make sure I was sticking to my time schedule. And it allowed me to see how I was doing with that, which was great, especially because normally they're midway to 3/4 of the way through bar prep. It allows you to really take a hard look and make sure that you're practicing, especially in those time settings, to make sure that you're adequately being able to answer all of the questions on the exam. Tip 23, make condensed outlines. Definitely at this point, especially exam week, you don't want to be still reviewing long outlines. You want to be using condensed outlines, maybe those flashcards, reviewing those acronyms that you created. Definitely not trying to read, and again, not cramming. Tip 24 is stay focused, especially in that last week. You're going to feel burned out and you're going to be distracted. I know for me that last week was the toughest week for me, but I just stuck to my daily plan. I had it all laid out. Having the plan already in place was great because it didn't allow me to deviate from it. And then I just reminded myself that when that pass letter or email came, it would all be worth it. So definitely make sure you stay focused. Now, tip 25, we're dealing with exam day tips. So the first tip is dress for success. Dress comfortably and in layers because the room could be hot or cold, especially a February bar exam. It could be really hot in there or it could be really cold. So you definitely want to make sure you have layers so that you feel comfortable and you're not worried about being hot or cold and you can focus strictly on the exam. Tip 26, make educated guesses. If you don't know the answer to something, make an educated guess and move on. You don't want to get stuck on one question and take too much time because it could cost you another question that you know the answer to. So definitely just make the guess, the educated guess, and keep going. Tip 27, don't freak out. Freaking out about the test won't help at this point, especially the day of. And you want to go in with a relaxed mindset and just do your best. In all honesty, on the day of the exam, I avoided personally all the other people in the exam room because I could tell a lot of them were freaking out, and I personally just wanted to relax and just do my own thing, and I didn't want to hear anyone else talking about their prep for the exam or what they did or didn't do. So definitely just do what feels right for you, but making sure that you're relaxed and that you're mindful and ready to take the exam that day. Tip 28, arrive early. Arrive at the exam early and be completely prepared with everything you need. But definitely make sure you follow the rules about what you can bring. Getting there early is great, especially if something happens and you get a little lost. It gives you a lot of extra time, which alleviates any anxiety. And definitely make sure you have everything you need, whether that be your laptop. If you're going to be taking the exam on the laptop, I know personally, I made sure, definitely make sure everything's downloaded correctly. In all honesty, I had a laptop issue the morning of the exam, but they were great and they helped me fix it. And because I arrived early, I was ready to start right on time. So definitely make sure you get there early. Make sure you have everything. Tip 29, watch the clock. During the exam, watch the clock and be cognizant of how much time you have is very important. Especially for myself with the essays, I made a strict time schedule because I didn't want to leave any points on the table by not getting to a question. And you really have to hold yourself to that strict time schedule. I did personally, and it helped me a lot. I know some people that spent all their time on a few questions and didn't get to all of them. So you definitely want to watch the clock and make sure you're moving on when you need to, because there's easy points on the table, especially with essays, and you don't want to leave any of those points out there. And then our last tip is tip number 30. You've got this. So you followed through on the schedule, you put in the time, and though you don't know everything, you know enough to pass. And passing is really all that matters. So stay focused and you'll get through the bar and you'll get that pass letter.
Well, thank you. That's all the time that we have today. We want to thank you for joining us. We want to thank Jarrad and Jessica for sharing their tips with us. And we wish you much success on your February bar exam. Take care.